Welcome to a reading of Chapter 1 of Dr. Eric Reckaway's first book, Beyond Orthodoxy, A Path to Post-Traditional Christian Spirituality. This book is for you if you're among the growing numbers of the spiritual but not religious, the religious nuns, the ex-evangelicals, the de-churched. Have you left the Protestant church, or maybe you just haven't been there in a while? Has your faith bottomed out in Christian traditionalism? Do you still love God, but no longer express this love in the old framework of the Protestant evangelical paradigm? Then yeah, you're in the exact right spot. Beyond Orthodoxy delves into the journey beyond the confines of traditional Christian paradigms towards a broader spirituality. Addressing the exodus from conventional church teachings, this book emphasizes a quest for deeper metaphysical understanding within Christian spirituality. It is specifically tailored for disillusioned souls who have departed from the church and are still seeking spiritual truth beyond creed and dogma. Controversial within the old framework, Beyond Orthodoxy encourages exploration of spirituality beyond rigid doctrines, offering insights into a perennial metaphysical perspective of Christianity while respecting other religious paths. Drawing from over a decade-long journey of a one-time evangelical pastor, it shares metaphysical insights and discoveries advocating for a loving, inclusive approach to spirituality. This work explores the sometimes tumultuous journey beyond traditional evangelical frameworks, guiding readers through three major transitions toward a vibrant and practical paradigm of post-traditional spirituality. If you find this or any content at New Thought Coaching helpful or entertaining, please consider liking and subscribing. If you can let the video play to the end, that would be great. You see, the ubiquitous algorithm likes it, and that's very good in helping us reach those who are still wandering thinking they're alone and need to stay alone. They don't. We're here, and with your help, we're going to find them. The warning is clear. The content of this work is regarded as controversial and in some circles, heretical. It's not for everyone. This book is crafted for a spiritually minded audience who can approach it openly and thoughtfully. In the right hands, it's a valuable resource offering lived insights, application of universal laws and principles, and a potential path toward personal transformation, empowerment, freedom, peace, and connection. However, caution is advised. In the wrong hands, with the wrong mindset, these ideas may lead to contention, confusion, and offense. This work serves as a reference guide tailored for those who have transitioned from traditional forms of the Christian church and are now seeking truth in a new context, one that transcends orthodoxy. My goal is to draw a clear distinction between historically orthodox forms of Christian expression, in particular, Protestantism, evangelicalism, and to a much smaller degree, Catholicism, and a historical metaphysical understanding of Christianity. The transition encompasses the Bible, the Church, the historical person of Jesus, and the Christ of God. This book is not an attempt to persuade anyone to leave the church or argue against churchgoers. To those engaged in a church, I extend my exhortation with love. To you I say stay, serve, love, and be loved. Simply put, if you can stay, you should stay. I also advise considering whether the content of this book aligns with your current journey, as it might not resonate. It's intended for seekers who have already transitioned out of the church and are exploring new paths to experience God in a post-evangelical, post-orthodox context. I'm not writing this to build consensus or start a movement. In the past, I passionately declared evangelical-flavored truth from the pulpit. But now, a bit more seasoned and humbled by the bruises of ignorance, I refrain from making definitive statements for others, especially the Creator. At most, I have a collection of deeply held convictions. This is what I am sharing in Beyond Orthodoxy. But there is something I think we can all agree on, which is that when the time comes for us to cross the bridge from this time-bound form back to the incorporeal, we will go alone. I am resolved in my thinking that none of us can or will know the accuracy of our deeply held beliefs until we transition back to the non-physical once again. We all must wait for the moment just past our last breath to validate our beliefs. So I say, make your best judgment and live this life to its fullest, aligned and congruent with what your soul is teaching you as you go. I think it's also important to state very clearly that even though I have left Orthodox Christianity and its expression through the evangelical church, I am not mad at the church. I have no desire to deride or speak ill of a church, or the church as a group of believers, nor any of its participants or practitioners. However, many of the things I will say here are directly opposed to Orthodox teachings. It's not in my heart or mind to be divisive, and I recognize that it's a fine line to walk. I love my evangelical experiences, well, most of them, and I love the people I met. The experience has helped shape and mold me. It just so happens I started asking better questions of myself and my beliefs, and the church did not have sufficient answers for what my soul was asking, what my instincts were sensing, and where my growth trajectory was leading. Those committed to the popular and traditional teachings of the historic Orthodox Church are defending both their faith and the integrity of the Church as they understand it, and I respect it. If your faith is engaged and actively producing life results that you feel are in accord with the will of God, then I want to offer nothing but support for you and your journey. If that's you as a reader, I would once again submit here that this work was written to those who have left the traditional fold, and I encourage you to return to your church and unpack your static with your church leaders and elders. Just don't ask for a refund for the book. With that said, I humbly invite you to go forward with me, knowing that I am poking at tradition and long-held presuppositions and views. I know that I have room in my sandbox of ideas for those in Orthodoxy. I don't need to throw sand if we don't have complete agreement. I also know that by the outworking of Protestant and evangelical doctrinal stances and hermeneutical positions, many still in that camp cannot reciprocate in the same fashion, nor do I expect them to. That's okay. I say let's choose love, on purpose. And as we consider new ideas and experiences together, let's also be careful to leave room for love and light, seasoned with grace. Next, and maybe most importantly, I want to state that I am not bringing anything new to the discussion here, except one single perspective, my perspective. Speaking of he, throughout the work I will use numerous references to what most collectively and conceptually consider God. I acknowledge the trouble and potential misunderstanding with this word. In my references to our collective understanding of the God concept, I very often refer to the one in a masculine gender-specific tone, mainly because of comfort, and also because of over 3 decades of momentum. I will refer to the one with pronouns such as he and him, which will always be capitalized when referring to the divine. I also call him Father, among other things. I offer prepaid apologies to those whom this may offend. It is not my intention, nor in my heart to offend. My use of these conventional pronouns does not indicate that I am gender-biased or pronoun-insensitive or have an overly anthropomorphized concept of God, and that I somehow think he is manlike or possesses a gender at all. I emphatically do not think that this is the case. However, I continue to look to Jesus as my model, and I have peacefully resolved that if these constructs and ideas of referencing the ineffable were good and meaningful to him, then they will be for me as well until or unless I feel I am being internally directed otherwise. I will reference divinity by always capitalizing my referencing words, which often change according to the context and mood of the text. However, I have for over 3 decades practiced evangelical-flavored Christianity, and I have a religious lexicon that reflects that influence even though it is being modified and continues to change as I continue to grow. In the meantime, I ask for grace and understanding as I work through this language issue. Admittedly, words are clumsy, especially when dealing with things of the spirit. However, for most of us, clumsy words are among our primary tools. Let's agree and realize that our word choices are always only going to be, at best, a close approximation of what the actual spiritual intent is behind any idea. Even more so with the words we use to describe our understanding of the Creator of all. May there be a perpetual grace bubble around both our speech and our hearing. The terms I use to describe spiritual metaphysics will become clearer as we go into the context of the topic. But for now, please understand my use of some fundamental terms. The term metaphysics is a reference to the non-physical nature of things, the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, substance, potentiality, and actuality. When I add the term spiritual to it, I am describing a particular stratum of reality, a range of experiences, beliefs, and practices that are used to connect with the divine, the sacred, or the transcendent. Okay, good so far? Maybe not. Let's add some more. So, when I talk of the divine, I'm pointing to the otherworldliness of something, not of human origin, and not earth and sense-bound. Often I am referring to the Creator whom many of us call God, and I'll use it capitalized to help make this distinction. Otherwise, it refers to things that touch or are related to the one in their nature. Then there is transcendence. This is an attribute or aspect of God's being and power that is wholly independent of the material universe, meaning it goes beyond all physical laws. You will also hear me speak of unfolding, which is to say, spiritual development and advancement in understanding and apprehension. Then of course there are the ideas of post-evangelical and post-orthodox. These I think are easier, but let me say it anyway, just for clarity. When using these terms, I am referring to a positional relational condition a group of spiritual people have with their former faith affiliation with traditionalism. They still love God and most believe in something beyond the material world, but no longer participate in the traditions, practices and rules taught within the historically traditional Christian faith systems. They no longer go to church worship services, or they do go sparingly, and if they go, it's in body only. They're there, but they are like dying fruit still hanging on the vine, waiting to be knocked off by the next strong wind. They may still go to church, but not to develop their spirit. Maybe they go because of a few cherished relationships or because they don't know what else to do, and unreconciled guilt won't allow them to let go. Not yet. They're on spiritual autopilot and go through the motions out of guilt or confusion, but they are authentically disengaged. Many post-Orthodox are also characterized by a willingness to entertain new questions and re-evaluate traditional doctrines, ethics and practices in light of personal experience, contemporary culture, and compelling scientific advancements that open up potential broader theological insights. This position includes a greater openness to a wider and more diverse spiritual dialogue, and considers a re-examination of issues related to gender, sexuality, the environment, and political allegiances from a more progressive standpoint. Next is Orthodox and Orthodoxy. I do not mean the Eastern branch of the Catholic Church. I mean something much closer to the universal definition of orthodoxy, which is the adherence to the early doctrines of the Church, as defined by historic creeds and the ecumenical council's statements about Jesus, the Church, and believers that were made in Christianity's dubious early history. It refers to traditionally accepted ways and means of faith, as approved by church hierarchy. It also represents the traditionalism that emerged out of the Reformation movement that gave birth to Protestantism. Then there is little I. This joker pops up a few times throughout the book. This is simply a name I use to distinguish our fleshy, carnal, ego-driven, constructed self-image from the true, spiritually connected and empowered self. It refers to our constructed persona, the image that we want the world to see, the one we show to prove that we have it all together. We will talk about this character in much greater detail as we go on. Now, for those who are relatively new to metaphysics and carry a background in Christian traditionalism, including to some degree Catholicism, fundamentalism, Protestantism, and in particular evangelicalism, please be aware that some of the ideas presented here might elicit defensive emotions. Many topics within spiritual metaphysics are often labeled as New Age, which by former doctrinal training can cause a knee-jerk response and trigger negative, sometimes hostile emotions and harsh judgment in the traditionally influenced mind. Many of us must work through our mental gag reflex when it comes to new terms and some new and fringe-sounding ideas. It's good to recognize this tendency if you are prone to knee-jerk reflex. However, I feel it's worthy of repetition and important to recognize that there is nothing inherently new in spiritual metaphysics. While it explores concepts that overlap with New Age philosophy, it also shares common ground with traditional Christianity, New Thought, Unity, Transcendentalism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and other various spiritual traditions. That's because at the root of all these paradigms is a perennial thread, a commonality that they all share. You will discover regarding truth and spiritual thought that while some of the surface details change, the perennial underpinnings are timeless and always remain the same. I have attempted to primarily focus on this perennial harmony for this work. Spiritual light is the same on the inside for everyone, regardless of what we call it on the outside. When contemplating the divine, we each peer out from behind our man-made intellectual umbrellas, uncertain of what exactly we see. So, in fear mixed with arrogance, we try to define it, label it, and then control it. In light of this universal uncertainty, especially on meaning and intent, disagreements on the words we choose and the implications of those words are not uncommon. I want to emphasize the appropriateness of occasional uncertainty. I not only deem it suitable for our exploration, but I believe it represents the most empowering stance our hearts can adopt. Uncertainty puts us in the seat of the student, and for this transition, that is the best place to start. Acknowledged uncertainty allows room for humility. That humility in turn invites light and love to permeate our intellect, healing wounds born of ignorance and misunderstanding. In the past, when I was confronted with ideas that challenged my staunch beliefs, I could not take the higher road of acknowledging my potential ignorance. But instead, I would double down on my known position. I would single-mindedly add more verses to my arsenals of defense and attack and dig my heels in deeper, in the name of defending my religion, defending the faith. I have come to see this as evangelical certainty, and in many instances you can swap out certainty and insert arrogance. I say arrogance due to the nature of what evangelicalism says that it is, religiously right, declaring all others religiously wrong and in need of conversion. The certainty of a religious system is a strong force. Convictions run deep and they don't need to make sense. This is less a criticism and more a warning. Certainty will close some doors that no man, no argument can open. I am now suggesting the exact opposite. Be aware and try to stay open. Instead of doubling down on what you think you know, double down on the possibility that your original understanding may have been limited or inaccurate, and it's worth the effort of reconsideration. If you don't like what you find after honest and careful consideration, you can always go right back. No blood, no foul, as we say in roughhouse basketball. But you owe it to yourself at this point to unpack, inspect the nuts and bolts, and see if there are any shavings from gears grinding or not fitting together. Let's face it, you picked the book up for a reason. For this journey, I recommend a generous perspective, a loose grip, and a more relaxed judgment, at least for now. Labels are human constructs for organization and differentiation, not definitive declarations of essence or truth. Consider the diversity within Christianity itself. Multiple millions of readers through millenniums ingest the same book and yet interpret it in such diverse ways that it supports well over 30,000 different denominations and variations, not counting lesser-known offshoots. I urge you to engage in thoughtful contemplation without hastily dismissing these ideas. It's essential to acknowledge that many of the traditional preconceived notions have their roots in a time in human history when our understanding and access to information were much more limited and our superstitions were much higher. I simply invite the discerning seeker to carefully consider these concepts, allowing room for deeper reflection, rather than hastily discarding them based on the echoes of ideas forged in times of limited sight, light, and incomplete knowledge. With that said, I invite you to step into the domain of spiritual metaphysics, a paradigm where your questions are not shunned but embraced, where your journey is not predetermined but co-created. Here, spirituality is not a set of rigid doctrines to do and not do. Instead, it's an unfolding tapestry of wisdom drawn from ancient traditions, modern insights of science, and most importantly, the sacred whispers of your soul. It's a sanctuary for the seeker who refuses to be confined by the walls of doctrine and dogma. As we navigate this terrain together, let's cast aside the shackles of religious conformity and embark on a liberated quest for a spirituality that resonates with the depth of our being. This is an invitation to question, explore, and redefine what it means to be spiritual beyond the confines of the familiar. May our journey together begin not with judgment, but with deep empathy. There is an unavoidable embrace of the unknown, and more freedom to be found in knowing how little we know, rather than citing chapter and verse for all of life's woes. This is a journey that transcends the binary narratives of saved and unsaved. I invite and encourage you to wander the expansive landscapes of your own potential and evolving spirituality. Here we can trade dogma for dialogue and rigidity for fluidity. We can find solace not in static and practiced answers but in dynamic possibilities to the profound questions that shape our shared experiences. Scroll through the pages here not as an act of rebellion but as a declaration of spiritual liberation. Here, the language of the divine is written not only in ancient scrolls but in the silent whispers of your intuition. May you come to a place of trust with this inner impulse. In the ideas presented here you can discover the resonance of a spirituality that aligns with the rhythm of your soul and life itself, where the sacred is not confined to sanctuaries but pulses within the very core of who you are and what you are experiencing. Whether it be the old squeaky pews of an antiquated church building or folding chairs of a school's gymnasium, where sermons and hymns once echoed, we're beyond the familiar religious tradition. A new score is rising and awaits your listening ears. It's the symphony of spiritual metaphysics, harmonizing with the unique cadence of your growth trajectory and journey. You are not here by accident, and you are not alone. The discontent that triggered your church exodus was initiated from the chambers of the eternal all. This indescribable one is calling awakening souls to more and better, to life abundant as Jesus said. It's a calling to go deeper in spirit, deeper into your sacred withinness. Here, exploration is sanctified, questioning is revered, and the only dogma is the freedom to discover and define your spiritual narrative. What I offer are field notes of more than a decade on this path. I share it hoping that someone else, maybe even you, may find the slightest slice of solace and direction, that which I was searching for when I was strapping my boots on at base camp. May these pages be a lantern on your path, illuminating the realms of possibility that unfold as you dare to venture beyond the familiar, into the vast and wondrous landscapes of spiritual metaphysics. You've been listening to Chapter 1 of Dr. Eric Reckoway's book, Beyond Orthodoxy. Thanks for being here. New Thought Coaching exists only to be a resource for those who are engaged with their spiritual unfolding and personal growth trajectory. If you would like to explore how growth coaching can help you on your journey, reach out to Dr. Reckoway and schedule a free exploratory call. Coaching sessions are 100% customized to you and your agenda, and are 100% donation-based. So what are you waiting for? Go to newthoughtcoaching.org and start the process of accelerated change. If you would like to help us find and support those who feel lost and alone as they journey out of traditional religious bondage into true spiritual Christian metaphysical freedom, then please like and share the video, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Light and love.